I'm going to talk a little bit about George Bayer and the time factors in the stock market book. George puts a few things right out there, and then he's got a few things that aren't right out there, which is typical. But a lot of people struggle with some of this stuff, and he's laying out a little bit of it, putting it right in front of you, and defining it fairly well. In this part 2, methods based on planetary motions to forecast stock and commodity movements. In the very first sentence, he says, when we get down to actual studies of the Bible and not to mere reading, we notice that we find the numbers of 7, 12, 40, and 70 repeating so often that their meaning cannot possibly be what we understand today as 7, 12, 40, and 70. My work on this subject has revealed the meaning is in degrees of a circle, so that when Moses remained 40 days on Mount Sinai, we have to understand that Jupiter moved forward 40 degrees in the heavens. So what he's telling us right here is that these numbers are time factors or time measurements, and he's giving a specific example relating 40-degree movements of Jupiter to the 40 days of Moses being on Mount Sinai. So he's telling you a little bit about interpreting the Bible and finding what some of these things are. Then he gets into the Daniel time times and half a time. In Daniel and in Revelation, we get the term time times and half a time. I've shown a few uses of this on some of the videos I've done in the past, and George is doing something different with it right here. But what he does, he mentions it, and then he talks about something else, and then he comes back to it later. So what he does, he gives you a little bit here, then he drops it, starts talking about some other topic, then comes back to it a little bit later. But he's giving you a little bit more Bible interpretation first. He's telling you that this event here, taken from the Revelations verse, saying that the time was winter. The eagle of the Bible always means the zodiac sign of Scorpio. Then he gives a picture of an orbital path with the zodiac signs, and he has what he calls the domain of the sun, with the heart of that at 15 degrees of Leo. Then he goes a certain distance both ways to mark that off. And then he's got the opposite side of Leo at 15 degrees there of Aquarius. So then he goes on to say that the woman who represents the sun, whose home is in the sign of Leo, Leo is ruled by the sun, therefore that would be the sun's home. So she flew into the wilderness, her place, which he says the wilderness of the Bible means the sign of Leo. She was nourished in her place for a time and times and half a time, the value of which counts to 122 and a half. It's an important number. So what he's saying here, this area, the domain of the sun, is 122 and a half degrees. And he's basing this on the fact that he says the biblical orbit, the biblical circle, is not 360, but extends to 368. Therefore, the actual beginning of its domain is at 1336 of Taurus, and 1621 Virgo is the end of it, with 15 Leo in the middle. He says the sun dominates this section. Jupiter and Saturn dominate the other two sections. Okay, so then how did he get the 122.5? Well, a little bit further down, he talks about it here. He says, analyzing further, we find the unit of time times half a time to be 35. 1 time is 35, 2 times is 70, half a time is 17.5. Adding those up gives us 122.5. Where else have we seen George using the 17.5 and 35 as base numbers? That's an important thing to take a look at. Okay, I'm not going to read any further because we've got plenty of meat to take a look at a few things right here looking at this picture. The first thing we're going to do is say that George has also given us another time factor, and that time factor is 122.5 degrees. So you can look at that as 122.5 time count, or you can look at it as degrees of planetary travel. So we're going to take a look at that. We're going to take a look at that count specifically as a day count, and then we're going to look at a couple of planets and use a longitudinal count and see how that works. So I've gone to the Bitcoin daily chart and made a few projections looking for 122.5 degrees of movement of the sun. You can see these measurements vary a little bit because of where the sun may be in the faster or slower part of its orbit. But I'm going to just take a look at these 4 projections of 122 degrees. The first one comes off the slow from April 7th, 2025. And that sun movement projects really the whole trend to one day before the top here on August 13th. The next one, I'm going to project from this low point, and that projects to this high right here on October 27th. Then I'm going to take the low in front of this significant high. This projects to this minor low right here, one day off. Then I'm going to project from this high 122.5 degrees, and that projects to this low right here in December of 2025. So there's 4 projections just using the sun with a time factor of 122.5. I'm also going to take a look at, I'll do a few projections for Helio, Mercury, and Venus. You can also project this geocentrically, but I'm not going to do all of that. I'll do a few of Helio, Merc, and Venus. Here are projections of heliocentric Mercury taken from the same points as I used on the sun chart. The first one off of this low is 1 bar off of this low. You can see that's basically the end of this sideways correction, and right after that time factor came in, the market made a nice push up for about a week. This next one was here. This low projected this low here, then projecting this low projected this minor top here, and then this high projected to this minor low right here. So all 4 of those are good projections as well. I'll do, you can see though that these things are quite a bit different in the amount of days because of the erratic nature of the Mercury orbit. Now I'm going to take the same points and I'll project Venus, heliocentric. And here's the result of the 4 Venus projections, same points, and this will be the last piece I'm going to show in this video. I'm going to come back and talk about some other application of what he's talking about in that book, but this April low projects to this significant low here in June. That same low is used to project forward. That projected to this reaction low right here. The next one, the projection from this low in August, projected to this low here in October. And lastly, the August high projected to 1 day off of this low right here at the end of October on the 30th. So good projections overall, a very useful time factor. I didn't show this used as a day count, but you can also just use this as a number count, and it works pretty well that way too. Anyhow, I showed you the sun longitude projection and also the Mercury and Venus heliocentric projections.